ewes that are in good condition, good body condition, if grass is sufficient, they can be grazed, or they can follow the thinner group in order to graze out paddocks. Where grass is in short supply, probably silage will be sufficient for the ewes that are in good condition. But for the thinner group of ewes, maybe half a kilogram of a fairly straightforward ration could be merited in the situation we're in this year.
Hello, I'm Kieran Lynch and welcome to OviCast, the Teagasc Sheep podcast. Each episode will bring you latest insights, advice and technical updates for the sheep industry. Now, in this episode, I'm joined by Sheep Specialist Damian Costello to discuss some of the key management tasks for the coming weeks. We start by looking ahead to the breeding season, and Damian highlights the importance of assessing body condition score and taking the necessary steps to correct any issues ahead of mating. We also discuss ram management, including what to consider when purchasing new rams, and the importance of biosecurity when introducing new stock to the farm. Finally, we discuss why now is a good time to carry out a drench test to check the efficacy of products being used on the farm. We start off the chat around the breeding season with Damian. Management in this August is going to be tricky. I suppose it depends on what part of the country you're in, with those in drought and looking like they're going to stay that way for another while, versus other areas in the country where grasses can return to normal production and some it didn't hit at all. Bit of a challenge in August ahead.
Absolutely, very much so. And as you say, it's varying. It's varying across the country as to the level of drought that's there. And as you say, some areas maybe not so badly hit, and more are looking like they're in for a couple of difficult weeks coming up.
Certainly. Look, I suppose there's still a lot of the tasks we need to look at, and one of the things that we probably need to focus on at the moment is looking at the breeding season ahead and putting the necessary steps in place. I suppose, Damon, if we started with the ewes first, what are a couple of key tasks we need to look at there?
Yeah, as you say, the breeding season doesn't be long coming around again. Most people have waned at this stage and so on. So if people haven't already done so, it's important to maybe go through the ewes, check for the various different issues that might for culling ewes. And equally, I suppose, then to pick out maybe the thinner ewes in the flock. These need to be separated and given access to good quality grass as soon as possible, really, for ewes that are intended for mating in early to mid-October. So they need a good plan of nutrition in order to build body condition. I think the key to this is doing it in time. We can't expect to build a body condition score on ewes over a short period. It will often take 10 or 12 weeks of good grass to achieve this.
And so, David, the challenge for some there will be the practical invitation. So if you have grass, possibly run them alongside your lambs as an option. For those that haven't, and maybe supplement silage, is there an argument there in certain cases for putting in a wee bit of supplement, just given the year in and the conditions that's available on some farms that are in drought?
Well, there probably is on individual farms. Like, as I said, we wouldn't normally be advocating concentrate feeding to ewes at this time of the year. But if the situation, as you say, you can only deal with what's in front of you. Again, probably ewes that are in good condition, good body condition. If grass is sufficient, they can be grazed, or they can follow the thinner group in order to graze out paddocks. As you say, where grass is in short supply, probably silage will be sufficient for the ewes that are in good condition. But for the thinner group of ewes, maybe half a kilogram of a fairly straightforward ration could be merited in this particular in the situation we're in this year.
I suppose we're talking about good condition, and condition score 3 at the moment. Just that nice little bit of cover across the ribs and the backbone is what we kind of call it fit.
Exactly. And sometimes we start to say we don't get too hung up, or we don't be encouraging people to get too hung up on whether they're a 2.5 or a 3 or a 3.5. But as you say, if you can divide them between what's kind of in and around the condition score of 3, and pull out the ewes that are in lesser condition, 2.5 kind of, and I suppose if they don't respond to either good grass or the option we mentioned, to a bit of silage supplementation and concentrates, if they're not responding to that, you'd probably question whether they should be bred at all. They could be ones for culling out of the system.
No, it's a fair point. No need to keep passengers there. Look, I suppose that's half the breeding story. The other half is the rams. Couple of tasks that we need to look at there, Damien.
Yeah, again, look at maybe the the annual NCT, I suppose, is way, and again, doing this in time is important. Sorting out any issues that rams may have, such as lameness issues or that, and again, body condition score is really important from the ram's point of view. The ram can lose probably up to 15% body condition during the busy mating season, so it's important that we try and build up your ram team uh, to a good body condition, 3.5 to 4 a turnout. And again, it's probably maybe necessary to supplement good quality grass with a suitable with a concentrate that's suitable for feeding to rams in order to achieve this target. So, um, again, starting in time and getting any health issues, and again observing the rams, I suppose. That there aren't any signs of infection or anything like that, because ram picks up an infection at this time of the year, it can cause temporary infertility. Just, I suppose, to keep an eye on them and observe them, and deal with any health issues that they may have promptly.
And I think that's important. Like you mentioned there with that slight rise, we have to bear in mind what they're producing semen wise now is not going to be used for 6 or 7 weeks. So it's a fair point, Damien. Like, by the time you might realise it could be too late, and it only shows up as scanning. So certainly
That
something to be on top of.
absolutely, yeah, yeah.
Look, I suppose with the best will in the world, we're going to have some rams and that aren't going to make the grade or could be slightly dodgy, and there's always a need in the flock to bring in new rams. No harm starting that task early either, Damien.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah. We always say. I mean, for if you need to purchase replacement rams, you can't beat getting out there in time. You'll have a far better selection of rams to choose from, and it also allows you the bought in ram to acclimatise to his new surroundings, and to get used to his new environment well in advance of the mating season. So yeah, it's good advice to get out there in time. Some people will still be purchasing rams for the sheep improvement scheme, for farms with less than 150 ewes. Most of them have completed the genotyped ram action as part of the sheep improvement scheme at this stage. But for flocks of over 150 ewes, they had to choose a second year in order to purchase their second eligible genotype ram for the scheme. So it's important maybe that people check that is 2026 one of those years that you've chosen to buy your second ram, and when you do go to buy the ram, obviously carrying out all the normal physical checks that one would do in terms of purchasing a ram, but also making sure that if you need to purchase the ram for the scheme, that he's SIS eligible on the day. And you can check this using the Sheep Ireland Ram Search facility, or if you're buying at a sale, it will be available. That information should be available on the sales catalogue. So.
That's a fair point. And look, I think to be fair, something Sean covered in last week's episode. Damien, we're talking about bringing in stock. It's the time of year where a lot of stock are moving between farms, whether it be rams, whether it be replacements, or in some cases maybe store lambs coming in on the farm, or stock coming back to it indeed. And every time an animal supposed to get in there, Damien, there's a risk with it. From a biosecurity point of view, what are a couple of key things that we could do to minimise that risk?
Yeah, sure. Look, what I suppose you're absolutely right. I mean, August is typically a month where ra replacement rams will be purchased. It could be hoggets, it could be store lambs. Um, Again, look, we've always had a closed flock, where you'd be really only buying in. You'd be only rams would be bought in. Would significantly reduce the risk. Um, but the other thing, as you mentioned there as well, it's important to bear in mind. People would say they have a closed flock, but they maybe take sheep to a sale or to a mart, and don't sell them, and they return, or to shows and so on. It's important point to remember that those can potentially bring back disease on the farm. So again, look, if you don't have an issue, it's really important that you don't bring in an issue. We have seen situations where issues like infectious lameness such as cod or even sheep scab or other issues can be brought in, and they can be. So again, look at having a proper protocol in place that the bought in stock where practical are kept on their own for observation for at least a month if possible. Um, and then maybe having a plan in place in terms of not buying in any resistant parasites or that, so that you have a plan in place for treating uh, treating for stomach worms and fluke and those type of things on arrival on the farm. So it's important to have a good biosecurity plan in place in order to avoid introducing any unwanted diseases to your flock.
There's enough challenges there without adding any additional ones to it. Look, you mentioned with stomach worms there, Damien. Typically, it's the time of year where we start to see issues occurring on farms. Certainly, it's the time of year we get phone calls about where, we're wondering, did our wormers work? We're wondering what is going wrong with it. In terms of tackling antibiotic resistance or checking do our wormers work, can we do anything about that now in the next couple of weeks?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's again, it's a really useful piece of information for somebody to have on their farm. It's widely acknowledged now that there are issues with breakdown of anthelmintic products on farms. Um, but a good indicator, I suppose, in terms of how effective the different product groups are, is to carry out a drench test on the farm. Um, and you know, what this really involves, I suppose, is selecting a random group of maybe 15 lambs from a group, and taking a fecal sample from that group of 15 lambs. You mark them and identify them. You take a pre-drench sample from them. You treat them and treat them properly, ensuring that the your dosing gun is calibrated and you're treating to the heaviest lamb and everything like that. And then depending on the product or product group that you use, you take a post-range sample. So for the levamisole group, you're taking your post-range sample a week later. And for any other group, it's 2 weeks later you're taking the second sample. So really what you're doing is you're checking that there's a fecal egg count there at the start, there's a worm burden there, you're treating appropriately, and you're coming back to take a sample in either 7 or 14 days afterwards, to see if the product worked. A good result or a perfect result, I suppose, is where you have 100% where there's no egg count present on the second sample, and after that you're calculating really how much the egg count has reduced based on the treatment. If it's less than 95% of a reduction, we count it as ineffective. But it is an important bit of information to have on the different anthelmintic groups that are used commonly on farms.
Looks a useful starting point, and I suppose something to be very concerned about that. It's a time where you very much depend on keeping lambs performing, and if that's what's hanging or holding it up, it's something that certainly needs to be addressed. But it's the first part in that, Damien. Take some of the guesswork out of the rest.
It does. And one of the things about that, you're absolutely right. But one of the things about that is, it can be, anthelmintic resistance can be there without, before it's very obvious that lambs didn't thrive on after a treatment. The product can be well and truly broken at that stage, I suppose. So sometimes it can be a gradual thing, but if you can detect, I suppose, the issues as at an earlier stage, maybe there's something that can be done to slow it down as well. So it's just useful information to have, that you know what products are, how effective the products you're using are in terms of the anthelmintic products being used for the control of stomach worms.
That's a fair point. Look, there are a couple of things that's applicable on every farm at the moment, and certainly a couple of areas that need to be addressed, particularly looking at that breeding flock and the rams on the farm.
Absolutely, yeah. No, it's and as I said, the situation is probably from a grass point of view or from a drought point of view, the situation probably is more grave in certain parts of the country, or even within farms. You can see variation where so it's it's a matter of I suppose making the best of what's there at the minute, and no doubt the weather will turn in time, and that, but it's important to keep ahead of the various tasks we mentioned there as well at the same time.
Damian, look, good having you on. Thanks very much for that.
Thanks, Kieran. Thanks.
We leave it there for this week's episode. I have included a link in the show notes to a text version of what we discussed in the sheep management notes for August. That's it for me. I'm Kieran Lynch. Thanks for joining us. Don't forget to subscribe and follow us wherever you get your podcasts.